So let me get the slides back up. Again, I appreciate who's actually everywhere. I saw somebody joining in from the car, very impressive. So these slides will be available. This is gonna be a quick 20 minutes. You know, there's only so much I can give you in 20 minutes. The hope is just to give you some quick tips and tools that you can look into, build from, and hopefully you can always reach back out to us for more information about how you can gain even further information on these. So just a quick, I work at the Southport School. We are a small independent school in Connecticut just for kids with language-based learning disabilities. I am the Chief Technology Integrator, but I'm also a special education teacher, Orton Gillingham Classroom Educator certified. So I get what it's like to teach reading with small groups, and it's challenging, which is kind of the premise of how we came up with this. You know, how to work with some technology to make that group instruction facilitate itself a little bit more. You can always reach out to me for more information. I'm pretty active on Twitter, getting my blog back going, but you can check out our school website or our newly launched CoLab website, which is where you can find about more training opportunities. So I'm going to kind of jump right off the bat into some of the topic areas. Again, it's going to be pretty quick and hopefully just give you an essence of some of the things that we use here and have worked out here that have been beneficial in small group instruction. So kind of the areas of decoding and fluency. One of the things when I was working with our Orton Gillingham fellows, we were both working together, team teaching a class and working together to share our expertise to make this idea of working with small groups. Was managing flashcards was just a chore. I was constantly dropping them when working with small groups. Trying to differentiate for those several kids that were in the room was just kind of a big task. So we worked on how you can use something like a slides program, Keynote, PowerPoint, anything like that. Different words, phrases, sentences, and passages. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a second and how that might work in some of the tools. And then taking it into a further to kind of really enable synchronous student feedback with a tool that is called Class Kick. And then I'm always going to go back to a favorite for reinforcement, Lexia. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll talk about it in just a second. So this is what I mean. This was something that was designed in Google Slides, could be done in a Google Doc, again, or your preference of Microsoft Office or Keynote or Pages. But the idea that our Orton Gillingham fellow had was that if she color-coded the words and goes on to phrases and passages, the students focused on their color, whether it be projected on a whiteboard, shared directly to a student's device. And what was easy was that if a student I had maybe needed more challenging vocabulary, I put it in their color, and maybe somebody need, 2-syllable versus 3-syllable words or simpler, more common vocabulary, could easily share those words within a pattern, but they only really focused on their color, because we know students don't like to read more than they have to when reading is challenging. So this was a really quick, easy way. And once students learned their color, you could either assign them or let them choose. Every time you go back to it, they know what their color is and they know what to focus on. Occasionally students will go beyond and want to read others, but it really helped streamline that. Okay, it's your turn to read first. These are the words you're going to read, and that's all they have to focus on. Again, here's an example. It might be in Google Slides where it was words, and then we did the same thing with sentences or onto passages. And again, when students are shared this, they can practice, they know which slides to go to. It is worked for their ability, for whatever skills they need within that pattern that you're working on. Easy to differentiate. And you basically can take this and make a copy and then just place it with a new pattern of words or phrases. But sometimes doing this live, particularly if you go from maybe the 3 students I might have to 4 or 5, it gets a bit of downtime for students as they're waiting for students to read out loud. And we know when there's downtime, our students run into some challenges on waiting. So another tool that I love that you can build this into is a tool called Class Kick. It is device agnostic. So they have an app and it works within a website. It's shared to students with a code. We have some of those issues with that require certain logins. They're not allowed. This one that doesn't take all that student information. So I could take those slides or wherever it's made into, put it into this tool. The tools you see at the top, the student and the teacher have access to. So there's a pen, there's an eraser, there's text box, but for this purpose, there's a recording feature. So I would type a slide with the directions. I record myself reading the directions, so there can be no question as to what those words might say, and then put onto the slides, clear to the student, headphones with a mic or a certain corner of the room. They can go all at the same time, record themselves reading the words or phrases. What's nice is then you also retain it in case you didn't get the running record notes down quickly, or when I was trying to do it with flashcards, couldn't sort them well enough to what was accurate or inaccurate. And also it's nice to be able to go back later on in the year when you want to refresh it. What was that skill? How did they do? Again, this can be, it's like a slide program. So slide by slide by slide, the students can do words, sentences, paragraphs, and be doing it all at the same time. So you're not losing that downtime. Students wait for each other and the ability to listen to it again later. So again, just showing that it can be done with even longer passages. We've had some of our lower school where they're doing fluency passages a little bigger. They fit onto here. One of our teachers created this as a great thing for really youngers. This was a kind of fluency and decoding drill for the repeated reading. Again, scaffolding it that the students did that kind of style reading for practice for the decoding and fluency, learning at the same time. But the slide on the right, she added in a little bit more activity to it because you can build in different things, taking a screenshot of what was a worksheet page. She added in her directions recording. So they could do the reading, they did the copying and the tracing and the writing all within one place. So they were not switching out of different apps to accomplish this. Another great tool for practicing fluency or gaining students just reading aloud is Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a free tool for educators. It's Microsoft bought them a couple of years ago. And we have found actually by capturing students doing fluency with something like this or in Class Kick, where they can listen to themselves after they are done, we have seen greater gains in fluency because students are actually able to now hear themselves and pick up on their errors. This was a student, you can see here, we had a whole rating system. We read 3 Fridays in a row. The students would have to go back and listen to themselves for each of those and come up with their improvements or skills they needed to work on. And it really made a great system that they can rewatch themselves, but is not available out to the public for security purposes. And again, just a great tool that I always come back to. People always ask me if there's something different. If you really need individualized practice reinforcement, not instruction, we use this kind of as homework reinforcement, or if kids just need independent time. Lexia is a tool our school has used for a long time just for reinforcement, as it does follow a lot of the structured literacy core components. Their core 5 being K through 5, Power Up as their new remodeled middle school on up, and it has a whole great plethora of things in it. You can check out their website for more information. So when we talk about comprehension and accessible print, we always start with how do we have accessible print? One of the great tools out there is Learning Ally. They are a great resource for human recorded audio, textbooks, and literature books. They're a great resource for many things. It is a subscription-based model. If you're worried about whether or not we know that with instruction, the print along with the audio, not all of their text has that, but a lot of students really rely on that human audio for engagement. If you're on a laptop or an iOS device or tablet, they have their own tools that it works within, so one sign-in, but it is a subscription-based model. Another sister to that is a site called Bookshare. It uses a digitized voice for literature, but all of the auditory and text are always there. So the students will always see the print while they were listening to the text. It works in any browser, but if you're on a tablet or iOS device, you need a third-party reader. But this is where some of the voice component can come in. I'm a big fan of Voice Dream Reader, which is an iOS app, because there's a lot of quality voices that this developer has built into there that really align it to being pretty clear, almost real-life sounding voices. There is a cost to that, but if you want to start with something free, Dolphin Easy Reader is a much simpler format, but is a great place to start if you want to see if students are using this. And again, Bookshare is free for students who qualify with a learning disability. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Education, and a great resource. We as a school, they have let us qualify any student we choose, so it can be an easy thing to set up with them if you want to easily qualify students. We know we still live in this paper-based world, so there's a kind of variety of tools out there to make paper accessible. My favorite voice screen reader. Earlier last year, it works as a standalone to just scan, or you can scan several pages at once and it will take that file into Voice Dream Reader and live there so that it can just be revisited and you don't have to rescan. A similar one to that is Speechify. Speechify, again, the user takes several pictures of a book or whatever article, whatever it may be, it creates it into its own audiobook file and then can be listened to on the go. For quick, easy scanning, Seeing AI is a free app by Microsoft. It's really designed for the blind, so there's a lot in there, but there is a great text reader in there. You just hover the app over a piece of paper and it will start reading. Another one similar to that is Claro Scan Pen. It does have a cost to it, but has a great feature for, again, just being able to take a quick snapshot and have the text read. Snapvert are a little bit more evolved, but it's from Text Help, and it actually works with Google Drive, so you can take a PDF when you install it. They have a folder system, and you drop it in the folder that says to convert, and it does its own thing, and it's readily accessible for once it's done converting within their system. There is a subscription cost to that one. And then if you really need to get away from any devices, the one reader pen out there, the C Pen, is probably the best scanning reader pen that I've seen out there. They have one with a dictionary or without for test taking purposes. Hard part is the cost is $250, but it works really well. And I know they're working to get it into testing situations like the ACT, SAT, but it's definitely worth a tool worth checking out because it does work really well and holds that content within the device so that it can be listened to later. For differentiated contextual reading, so we want to easily take the same information and have students read it at different levels. Newsela is a pretty well-known one, or Newsela, depending on your pronunciation choice. One of the challenges that I ran into Newsela, and just if you're not familiar with it, this is what it might do. I can take an article at a 6th grade level, but if my student's not decoding at that level, with a click of a button, I can level it down. So the content comprehension is the same. It just simplifies the vocabulary and the sentence structure. So two students or multiple students can be reading at different levels, but you can have the same class discussion, same kind of questioning happening without anyone knowing what level they're reading at. They can be done on their website or app or printed out. One of the challenges I ran into with Newsela was my students were leveling themselves up or down without my decision because it was at their click of a button as well as mine. We ended up with Freckle for a math purpose, but Freckle has the same kind of structure as Newsela with the nonfiction articles to be leveled, multiple choice questions, but the level at which it is assigned, so students can't change it. But other than that, it works the same. Both have a free level that you can start with and then explore a paid level if you choose.
Yay.
Rewordify.com is just a website
Yay.
for a long time, and it's another site that you can check out, and I'm going to give you a resource at the end to learn a little bit more about it, that you can take text from anywhere and level it. It has some constraints at its leveling, not as specific as others, but also has a great source of literature already in there, particularly I'm thinking of like college and high school students. But again, I'm going to show you where you can get a resource to find out more. Because again, today is a quick step. If we're talking comprehension, there's a couple of different variety of tools out there that add in some different supports. Insert Learning, Common Lit, and Active Learn are somewhat similar. Common Lit, the essence being building in questions within text. So if you have students with working memory, we know one of the challenges is they can't read a whole chapter and then remember it to answer the question. Common Lit has articles with already questions in it that can't be edited, but the site is free. Actively Learn and Insert Learning, very similar. There's a cost structure to it. Insert Learning, Chromebook only. actively learn, device agnostic. Kind of give you a quick example. This is actively learn that I use with my students. So I can go get a text and I embed the questions right within. So students who struggle with processing of a lot of information, working memory, can go, they know that the question response, the answer I'm looking for is somewhere above in the couple of paragraphs of however much I've given them. So it enables them to really be engaged more and feel more successful. There's a rating system right within the tool that my students know what they have to get in order to get that rating system. They can make revisions. Students, teachers can leave notes in there. Hey, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. Keep this thought in mind, or think about this as you're reading, but also embedding the questions. Insert Learning does, again, the same thing. ReadWorks is just another great bank of articles that have some audio available. They have some step up ones so that it can be leveled, much like Newsella. And then I think about going through school. I relied so much on Cliff Notes. Lit Charts is that modern version. It's an online version. There is a cost structure to it, but I think of a lot of high school and college students who might need that to deal with some of those more challenging literature books. Again, ReadWorks, one of their great tools is actually their article for a day, which meant to be a 10-minute kind of quick, easy thing to work on those background knowledge challenges that we know a lot of our learners have, and vocabulary. Our teachers that use it really find it so beneficial. If you have youngers, here's another great site for accessible books. Epic Books is free for teachers. It's really for the lower school elementary age. Hard part is the kids only have access to the free version during 8 to 4 during the academic day, but families can subscribe on their own if they want after hours access. And our students really love the library that is there and the ability that they have to listen on their own. And just kind of some teacher ideas of how to, you can also expand. This is something one of my teachers did. She took Keynote. Again, you could do this in Slides now that Slides has the recording ability. She took Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. She took a scan of each page, put it on there, recorded herself reading each page, and then put questions for the students to answer. She recorded herself reading the questions. That's what those little icons you see. You can also do this now in Google Slides. They added the same ability. And then she shared this to the students so they could progress through their own, listening as often as they needed to and answering those questions either using dictation or typing or recording themselves and then sharing it back to her. So kind of a neat way to build some engagement. She said it, it took a little bit of time at the front end, but once they were working on it, it was pretty seamless and engaging. I also think about, I'm using some with some middle schoolers. I wanted to build kind of an interactive way to take notes. So same idea, using a slideshow program that I could bring in a plot chart. We had some terms, we had definitions, they could add images, they could add their recordings, but it was one place to take notes that was a little more engaging than me just giving them 2-column notes in a Google Doc. And again, another way to use Flipgrid is for reading comprehension. This was a great tweet that I had found out about a year ago that, just having kids record themselves retelling. So we take away print that we know can be so challenging for some of our students, but they are able to engage and also engage with each other if they want to respond to each other. So as I said, I'm going to give you a spot to learn more. This URL is to a YouTube channel that I have curated videos about a lot of these tools as well as many others. They're not made by me. Many are made by the companies or other educators. They can give you a lot more great how-tos as to some of these tools because again, today is pretty quick. If there are some ones that particularly interest you, I encourage you to reach out to those companies for online demonstrations. Go to Facebook or Twitter. And if you're following, if you're on Twitter, ATChat is another great place for resources related to working with kids with learning differences. So I know that was a lot in a short period of time, as was our goal was that, we wanted to just give you some quick tips and tricks. If anyone has any questions, I type them in the chat box so I can take a quick look. If you know it's maybe a lot to have thrown at you in 20 minutes, and if you want to process it, you can always email. And if you kind of like a little bit more kind of in depth, you can reach out to our Southport CoLab and look at opportunities or reach out via email opportunities to get a bit more information about what other tools could be in this area or how you can kind of take those tools and do a little bit more. And if you don't have any questions, again, I appreciate you guys popping in today for this kind of quick tips and tricks for things that might exist and maybe kind of give you a taste of what is possible to build engaging reading instruction with technology.
Just right. Participant 15.
All your comments that you're sharing. I'm glad that hopefully gave you some things to think about. And I appreciate you stopping in. Fred, I'm glad it's what the doctor. Hopefully none of you are dealing with the flu and the stomach bug like we are around here.
Should we just turn on?
Thanks everybody for joining in. Again, if you don't have questions now but want to visit later, please feel free to send an email or again, check out our South Park Lab. We have 2 more webinars on note-taking and writing in the next few weeks. So if you haven't signed up and are interested, love to have you join in. Have a great afternoon, everyone.